Well, we have a comprehensive report on the first day of the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine across the country. We'll bring you that in a bit. But right now, after 167 days of forced leave, Auditor General Daniel Domelovo is due back at post Wednesday to resume his role as the Chief Auditor of Government Affairs. There's, however, a hitch. He's been told disparities and anomalies in his personal records with the state suggest he is supposed to have retired last year. We'll be sharing with you correspondence between the Auditor General and the Audit Service on this issue shortly. But let's first give you a background to the matter in this news desk report.
Daniel Domelovo with his infamous quote during an interview following his decision to surcharge former senior minister Yao Osafo-Maafo for allegedly breaching the Public Procurement Act that resulted in their payment of $1 million to a private UK firm, Kroll and Associates. Mr. Osafo-Maafo then sued the Auditor General and 4 other officials of the Finance Ministry to clear their names. His was one of many state entities Mr. Domelovo was investigating, but on June 29, 2020, President Akufo-Addo directed him to proceed on his accumulated annual leave of 123 working days. The presidency had relied on sections 20 and 32 of the labor law and also a precedent set by former President Atta Mills when he asked the then Auditor General Edward Dua-Agyeman to proceed on leave. But the move was criticized by some civil society organizations which read meanings into the decision.
The president has no power to exercise any control, disciplinary, whatever, financial, administrative, managerial, none.
Days after this directive, Mr. Domelovo wrote back to the presidency urging President Akufo-Addo to reconsider the directive as it was unconstitutional. Daniel Domelovo said he had observed that his work was embarrassing the government. Following this letter, the presidency extended his leave by an additional 44 days. Government maintained the decision of the president was well grounded in law.
A sitting president has exercised the powers under the Labour Act, reference to somebody in the audit service in this manner. I do not recall civil society groups coming together to do a press conference.
Several pressure groups, political parties, and civil society organizations, including Occupy Ghana, CDD, the NDC, and anti-corruption campaigners, including Vitus Azim, spoke against the directive and urged the president to recall the Auditor General from his leave.
First, we believe the decision of the president is not proper and needs to be reconsidered. The action gravely weakens the president's fight against corruption.
US-based Ghanaian lawyer Professor Kweku Asari took the campaign a notch higher when he sued the Attorney General and 2 others over this directive, arguing it was illegal and inconsistent with the letter and spirit of Article 1877 of the 1992 Constitution. Within the first month of proceeding on leave, the locks on Mr. Domelovo's office were changed on the instructions of the Audit Service Board, chaired by Professor Dua-Agyeman.
Yeah, but the key cannot even enter. How do you see that? It was flat like this, and they've changed it to this one.
Professor Dua-Agyeman defended this action, saying the move was to secure the office.
There is a problem about the office, the locks. The board has every right to make sure that the place is secure.
After 167 days on leave, Daniel Domelovo is expected to return tomorrow, March 3, 2021, to continue his work. What remains to be seen is what will become of the legal action taken in his defense following the president's directive.
Right, so as I indicated earlier, we have cited correspondence between the Audit Service and the Auditor General on this matter, and we'll be sharing that with you. And Ernest Menu will be joining me. He has that set of correspondence. But we also have on the lines the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, Edem Senanu, who will be speaking to, because he's one of the civil society organizations that's been counting down the days to the return of Daniel Domelovo back to his post. But Ernest Menu, you have a set of a copy or copies of the correspondences between the Audit Service and the Auditor General. So let's start with what exactly these letters say. What's the very first one you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, so we'll start with the letter from the board chairman, that's Professor Edward Diajiman, writing to Daniel Domelovo, inviting him for a special meeting with the Audit Board. Now, in this letter, Mr. Diajiman says that information made available to the board, amongst others, show that there are disparities in your date of birth and place of birth that obviously have effect on the date of your compulsory retirement from the service in accordance with Article 1191 of the 1992 Constitution. In accordance with Section 6.2 of the Audit Service Act 2000, the board service kindly invites you to a special meeting on Friday, the 26th of February 2021 at 10 a.m. in the board conference room to resolve these matters. So that is the first letter written from the board and signed by the board chairman to Mr. Domelovo. He then responds in a letter dated the 26th of February 2021. Now, in this letter, Mr. Domelovo says, I refer to your letter with reference number states on the above subject matter. And the above subject matter here is invitation for a special meeting with the board of the Audit Service.
All right.
Now, he says, you stated in the letter under reference that, quote, information made available to the board shows that there are disparities in your date of birth and place of birth that obviously have effect on the date of your compulsory retirement from the service in accordance with Article 119 of the 1992 Constitution. And this is quoting directly from the letter of the board chairman of the Audit Service. Now, he goes on to say that whereas the information you allegedly have is false and completely irrelevant for purposes of reckoning the time of my retirement, compulsory or otherwise, you are reminded that the board is not my appointing authority. So Daniel Domelovo, for the first time in this letter, and you see that run through the other document I'll be showing you, reminds the board that the board is not the appointing authority. And so that is his response. Now, the board writes back, Israel, on the issue of the disparities that they raised in the initial letter to him. This time, they give details of the those disparities they talk about as far as his personal records are concerned. Now, it is a 6-paragraph letter, and I'll take it one by one. The first paragraph says, records at the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, that's NIT, completed and signed by you indicate that your date of birth is the 1st of June 1960, and that is when you joined the scheme. You joined the scheme on the 1st of October 1978. Now, the second point says that the records show that you stated your tribe as Togolese and non-Ghanaian. That your hometown is at Betofe. Paragraph 3. On the 25th October 1993, you completed and signed a SNIT change of beneficiary nomination form stating your date of birth as 1st June 1961 instead of 1st June 1960, which you stated on your SNIT membership member registration application card number 372777019 when you joined the scheme on October 1, 1978 while working with the Ghana Education Service in Praso. Now, on October 25, 1993, you completed and signed a SNIT change of beneficiary nomination form stating your nationality as Ghanaian and your hometown as Adan in the Greater Accra region. The date of birth of your Ghanaian passport number A454800 issued on the 28th of February 1996 is the 1st of June 1961, and the place of birth is stated as Kumasi in the Ashanti region. The final paragraph in this letter says that on the 8th of August 2012, you were issued with a Ghanaian passport number G0367080, which again showed your date of birth as the 1st of June 1961. So in this particular letter, the board details those disparities they talk about as far as specifically his date of birth is concerned and where he comes from and other details as far as his personal records are concerned, they asked him to reply within 24 hours. So Mr. Domelovo does that.
Okay.
And he tries to set the record straight.
So he replies, and I'm interested in what he had to say in response to all that the Audit Service had raised in the previous letter.
And so in his response, we have here a 7-paragraph response to that letter written by the Audit Service board on his disparities. The first one, he gives a background of his family and how he came by the hometown at Betofe. And he says that my grandfather, the late Martin Domelovo Tete, belonged to the Boy Do Wim, or Boy Do House, which is part of the Dande Biawe clan. Now, he was a native of Ada in the Greater Accra region of Ghana, who migrated to Togo and stayed in Adotefe, and that is the hometown. My late father, Augustine Domelovo, migrated from Togo to the then Gold Coast. He stayed in several towns or villages before finally settling in Kwewu, Ademra. Either my father wrongly mentioned Adotefe in Togo as his hometown to me, or I misconstrued it at the time. And that is the first explanation. Right. Now, the second explanation says my mother is also Ghanaian. And that's all he says in that paragraph.
All right, but
the third paragraph, he goes on to say that according to your letter, yes, Israel.
Yes, I want us to go straight to the issue of the discrepancy or disparity with the date of birth.
Great. So when it comes to the date of birth, that is from paragraph 5 to 7. Paragraph 4, actually. Paragraph 4 says, with regards to the date 1960, that's my date of birth. I noticed a mistake when I checked my information with the baptismal register of the Catholic Church in Adema. The register has Yao as part of my name and also provides my date of birth as 1st June 1961. This corresponds with Thursday or Yao, the day of the week on which I was born. And he gives the contact details of the parish priest for Ademra if the board wishes to reconcile those details and make their own checks.
All right.
Now, in the third paragraph, he goes to the issue of the passport, which also has some discrepancy with the board talks about. And the board, he says that my passport and my birth certificate bear the correct date of birth, which is 1st June 1961. And then the third paragraph says, if affidavit or a legal instrument was required, then I am sure I provided them. Otherwise, SNAIT would have effected the changes.
All right.
The very final paragraph in response to this discrepancy issue is that with regards to the place of birth, I was born in Kumasi and my mother in less than a week.
All right, we obviously seem to be having some challenges with you, but I am also very much interested in the very last correspondence which has come through. Apparently it's dated today, and the Audit Service is taking a particular position on it. Ernest, if you have that, could you just tell us exactly what the Audit Service is saying? All right, so we have that on your screens right now. It says, records made available to the board indicates that your retirement was June 1, 2020, and as far as the Audit Service is concerned, you're deemed to have retired. Let's go on to Zoom now. I told you that we have the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, Edem Senanu, for more on this. Now, Mr. Senanu, thank you very much for joining us. Now, you are one of those who had been anticipating that Mr. Daniel Domelovo was to get back to his post tomorrow. Now, what's your take with all that's happening now?
Well, thank you. Not too surprising. I think that this trend of events, the ding-dong between the chairman of the Audit Service Board, who seems to have a personal vendetta with the current Auditor General, Daniel Domelovo, has been ongoing. It's been from the very first year. Therefore not too surprising. I think that the thing that would probably be an issue for most of us is one is not expecting that the board chair would want to suggest that Mr. Daniel Domelovo should not go to his office tomorrow. We expect to see him in his office tomorrow. If there's some investigation they want to do to see whether his passport is genuine or not, that's an issue to be dealt with whilst the man is in office. To all extents and purposes, once you have a passport, the passport processes require cross-checking of the supporting documents. People cannot suggest that he's not a Ghanaian. I think that some of this begins to become comical, and we should not be finding ourselves in this position at this point.
All right, now we've all heard from the audit service indicating that, well, he's supposed to have retired, per their records, he's supposed to have retired sometime last year. Knowing very well that he's already been there once to want to have access to his office, and he had a challenge. Do you anticipate that or do you believe that he going there tomorrow is good advice?
Well, I'm not sure about the advice. I mean, when he went and the doors were locked, he was not confronted. There was no violence. Indeed, that was also a very strange situation because he said the keys were with the secretary because of a security issue. And then the secretary said she gave it to the director. And then the director said they left it somewhere. And one was wondering, didn't they have a chief of security who could have kept the keys, a security issue? I mean, there was no violence. He should just walk there. Yeah. It will give media more reportage, and we'll all hear what happened.
It's okay. So that's the point I'm actually making is he went there when he was supposed to be on leave, and he couldn't have access to his office. Now that he's deemed to have gone on retirement, do you anticipate that he's going to have much better access than when he was on leave? And for which reason I'm asking, would it be advisable for him to actually go there?
Well, I would not want to speculate. I mean, if you ask me and many of us in good governance and anti-corruption, we want the man back. So he should go to the office, and whatever transpires to be part of the history of this country. We are clear in our minds that we need strong men and women like Daniel Domelovo in that kind of position to get the results we've seen from him. It's unfortunate that we seem to undermine our very own when they are doing very well under circumstances that are very much contrived and do not augur well for the collective good of this country. It's a shame. But let's see how tomorrow pans out. If you ask me my advice, Mr. Daniel Domelovo, please report at your office tomorrow. This story of you are not a Ghanaian, you are Togolese, especially when he's Yao, and he's able to demonstrate that Yao actually fits the 1st June 1961. I'm sure if you go to 1st June 1960, you don't get a Yao. So a basic analysis of this is just saying it's a storm in a teacup.
All right.
And there's a personal vendetta somebody has. It's surprising that it has taken such a turn of events for somebody who's done such a good job for this country.
All right, thank you very much, Edem Senanu, for making time to speak with us. And our checks indicate that Mr. Yao Domelovo, the Auditor General, intends to be in his office or go to the office yesterday, and so we'll be watching this space to see how it pans out. But we also we're learning that some members of Parliament have been reacting to this very story. We have those reactions. We'll be sharing that with you. Still ahead in the bulletin, members of Parliament's Appointments Committee suspend the recommendation for approval of 6 of President Akufo-Addo's ministerial nominees, including the 3 the minority MPs rejected.
On whether they are arrogant or not. We are simply in respect of some persons demanding better particulars in respect of some roles they played in their public life to appreciate it. So Chairman will be inviting the nominees to meet the committee, but essentially not in camera.